to RTW Rewind. Rad Rob will take you on a journey through time to relive some of the greatest moments, matches, and personalities from the sport of professional wrestling. Now, here's your host of the show, Rad Rob, Rob Francois.
Hey guys, welcome back to RTW Rewind. It is day 2 of my Rad Rumble week, the second annual Rad Rumble. 7 days of unique content every day leading up until this Sunday's Royal Rumble. I have a very special returning guest with me now. He was on with me last year. He is a former WWF wrestler. Well, I mean, he pretty much hit the whole entire circuit. He was one half of the Killer Bees with Jumpin' Jim Brunzell. He is the president of the Cauliflower Alley Club. It is the one and only my good friend, Mr. B. Brian Blair. B, how's it going, buddy?
Good, Rob. Great to be on with you again.
I'm glad to have you here. As we were talking off air, you said you were super busy. What all you got going on right now, bud?
I got real estate going on. I have TV production going on. I have the Cauliflower Alley Club is so time consuming, and now with COVID, so many guys are hurting. And Pat Patterson, who created the Royal Rumble, I spoke with him about a month before he passed. The dementia was starting to get to him where he couldn't carry on a really cohesive conversation. So anyway, at least I got to speak to him a lot during his good final days. And, I'll never forget him creating the Royal Rumble. And I was right there and was in the first one. And it was a beautiful thing. People really got into it. And Pat was a bright mind. But besides, Pat, there's so many other needy people that, for example, I was on the phone with Art Cruz for an hour. He's got dementia and he's living in a home. And I got Tony Marino that lives up the street, about maybe a half a mile from me. Tony's doing good, by the way. And I'm just all the time on the phone trying to pick people up and trying to help people out.
And that's what it's all about. And I know we briefly touched on the CAC last time, but I did want to get a little bit more into it.
Plus I have a book coming out.
Yes, and I do want to talk about that, yes.
I'll tell you what, you're going to love the book. I promise you're going to like it. It's called Truth Be Told, Truth, B-E-E Told. And, I've got Bret Hart and Hulkster, Hulk Hogan have done forwards. So it's a very interesting autobiography. I've had a very tough life that people don't know about. And they're going to find out more things about B. Brian Blair than maybe you wanted to know, but I just felt like I had to tell the truth. And plus, I've got another episode of Dark Side of the Ring coming up on the 27th. So, I got so much stuff going on. It's crazy.
Yeah.
When you get older, you turn 64, you're supposed to be laid back, retired, right?
Didn't Ringo Starr write a song about that when I'm 64? So
I don't know, but I just say, hey, I'm 64 and there's so much more.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Paradise.
Do you have a release date for your book yet?
We don't have an exact release date, but I would say it will be in the middle of March. Okay.
Now, I read your former tag team partner, Jimmy Brunzell's book, Matlands, and that's a very, very good book. So I'm looking forward to hearing a lot more of your stories too.
Yeah, it's a very good book. I was a politician and started when I got tired of being on the road for so many days. I mean, I was just brutal with Vince, and I finally pulled Vince aside in Maryland in Salisbury and said, Vince, I can't take it no more. I need a break. Maybe I'll go start a business or something, but I just have to have a break for a while. And he was so understanding. I mean, Vince has always been nice to me, very understanding with me. He's always had the problems with Jimmy, and Jimmy doesn't like him, and he doesn't like Jimmy, and I can't do anything about that. So it kind of hurts the Killer Bees, but it is what it is. but you can read about all that stuff in the book.
And I'm looking forward to it. And yes, Jimmy told me he's got, issues with Vince and the way he was treated. And then when I asked you about it last time we talked, you said, no, everything's good with me and Vince. So, do you, how do I put this? Do you want to be in the WWE Hall of Fame? Would you accept the invitation if he wanted to put you and Jimmy in as a tag team? Is that something that you would like to do before it's all over?
Absolutely. I mean, it would be a tremendous honor. I mean, it would be a privilege. And, I was excited when they put Jimmy and I in the Iowa Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But when you work for a company for 7 or 8 years, because I worked for his dad, when Vince was still announcing, I worked for Vince Sr. on 2 different tours. And Vince Sr. actually sent me to Japan the first time in 1981. And he's the one that actually told me to be Brian Blair. He said, he said, I always hear the guys calling you Bieber or Beeper or something like that. He says, what does that mean? And so I went through the story. And he said, well, B, he goes, I bet you if I go in the phone book right now, I won't find a B Brian Blair, and I'll find 10 Brian Blairs. And I said, hey, you've got a great point, Mr. McMahon. I said, let's just go with it. I've been called B or B Brian for so long. It's just natural. And so the third time I came in, I guess I was B Brian Blair, or the second time I was B Brian.
How was Vince Sr. to work for compared to Junior?
Much easier.
Yeah.
Vince Jr. is more of a very laser focused businessman, whereas in your face kind of, or right in front of everybody. I mean, he wants everybody to know this is the way it is. If you don't like it, you can hit the road. And whereas Vince Sr. had a much more calm demeanor. Of course, he knew where he was going, where he wanted to go. He was very honest, very upfront. He made things seem so easy, to speak with him. It was always just a joy to have any amount of his time.
Now, did you witness any of the relationship between him and his son, the way they kind of interacted with each other? Or how did they seem to get along?
Everything I saw was great. I remember when Senior was dying, and Junior was pushing him around in the wheelchair. And I have a very nice visual of them laughing together. And so, nobody knows until you're in the room, or until you walked a few moons in somebody's moccasins, as the old Indian proverb goes. But they seem like they got along wonderful.
No, that's good, because we've all heard stories about Vince Jr. not growing up around his dad and meeting him as he got older. So I was always curious to see how the two got along when they worked together. Obviously, Senior didn't want Junior in the business, but starting out, I heard Vince Jr. did it all. He put up the ring. He worked in the office. He did commentary. He seemed to learn every facet of the business. Do you think Senior would have been proud of what Junior has created as a global, worldwide giant? The greatest company in the world.
How can he not be? I mean, yeah. I'm sure that he's smiling down from heaven on him and saying, "Wow, I never thought that you would make the company into what it's become." And I know that he would be very proud of Junior, very, very proud of Junior. There was a time when he wouldn't even let Junior around the boys. It was like kayfabe whenever Junior came around. So from going to that to where it is now, where I've been with them. When the tag team era hit in like 85, 86, 87, those years. Things were very, very hot, and they kept escalating and escalating. And I was there right up until right before WrestleMania 1. And then Senior said, why don't you come back and work for the Intercontinental title? And I said, because I was going to Florida and they were going to put the strap on me. Him and Eddie always talked, Eddie Graham. And so that was kind of the plan at the time. And I had a great run in Florida and made a lot of money, had a lot of fun, made a lot of people happy, which is the most important thing. And then I got a phone call from Hulkster, and he said, "Hey, Junior wants you to come in and be a tag team with him." I thought, well, that's a little different, but as long as I have an opportunity to be the tag team champion, I'll do it. And right away, I got the promise right. That was the first promise.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And, because they told me about Jim Brunzell, and I said I knew him, but it was more from magazines and stuff. I didn't know him as a person. And since Hulkster had worked in the AWA territory and knew Jimmy, and knowing that him and Greg were an excellent tag team, I've become close to Greg too in between now and then. But knowing that they were an excellent tag team, it seemed very logical to put us together. And we met in Brantford, Ontario, in I believe '85, and had a wonderful run as the Bees, as a killer Bees.
Now everybody knows about your masked confusion gimmick with the Bees, where you and Jimmy would put on your masks and interchange within in the match without anybody else knowing it. I actually have a funny story from a friend of mine who was trained and worked on the indie circuit. He teamed with a guy that was about 350 pounds, and as a rib for Halloween, they did the same type thing. They they put on these killer bee masks and tried to do the same thing in and out. And obviously there's a huge difference between my buddy who's 210 pounds and his tag team partner 350. But as a joke, they did it, and the referee, he kept kayfabe alive. He acted like he didn't know what was going on, and it was a pretty funny thing. So he told me that the other day. I said, "Yeah, well, I'm talking to Brian in a couple of days. I'll let him know about that." But yeah, they as a rib, they did the mass confusion thing. But that, honestly, when you guys did it, that was a pretty innovative thing to do.
I was talking to Bret Hart yesterday for about an hour, and I love Bret. He's just such a great guy. We've been friends for so long. He's kind of upset about the way they have things in Canada. It's so locked down. It's ridiculous. And here I'm in Florida, and in Florida, we're wide open.
Yeah.
And, and actually in Florida, if you take the 4 strictest states in the Union, California, New York, New Jersey, and Michigan, they have a million more deaths and a million more cases, 100% more deaths and cases per million people.
Yeah.
So they're just torturing people for no reason. It's just government control.
Yeah, it really is. And then, you look at Cuomo and his recent State of the State address saying, yeah, you know what, we found that lockdowns aren't right, and now we need to reopen and kickstart economy.
Look at all the people that have been hurt, all the people that missed elective surgeries, all the people that missed weddings, funerals, graduations. It's absolutely ridiculous. Broken hearts. I mean, every crime record statistic kept has doubled. It's a shame, and its government has gotten out of hand.
It has. It really has. I mentioned to you that I'm starting a new political podcast here in a couple of weeks. I definitely would like to.
Can't wait to be on that, brother.
Yeah, to have you. Yeah, we'll be wide open on that.
That's
one.
Another thing I do. I do a radio show, The American Adversaries, every Friday, which I've done for 3 years now. It's the #1 drive time primetime show in Orlando. Every Friday, it's on AM and FM. And Chris Hart, that's his show, Christopher Hart, and it's a full-out political show. So anytime. I mean, I don't mind people knowing my views. I mean, I respect everybody's views. My dad's a Democrat. He's one of my best friends, probably my best friend. And I just I'm more of a libertarian than a Republican, but
I think a lot of us are going to lean that way here with the way the GOP's treated all of us. So.
Yeah, the GOP can go take a hike as far as I'm concerned. I'm tired of the turncoats like Pence. And, so many others. It's just ridiculous. So.
I agree. Now, a friend of mine brought up a good point today. We were talking about everything that was going on, and we are talking about, possibly, joining the Patriot Party or a different party if one came up. But he brought up a good point to me is, why don't we just do the same thing that the left did and primary the same old guard, the same old GOP out, and then take the candidates that you would like to see and make a new Republican Party. If the left can do it, then certainly the right can do it. I don't see a third party making any waves here when, the GOP and the Democrats are so established, you'll never get over.
Yeah, no, I agree, Rob. You just, it's up to voters have to start paying attention more. They cannot watch one news channel.
Right.
I think that you're going to form an opinion because it's not. This is the day of fake news. And I don't care. I'll debate anybody and their brother on it, and I will win. I will guarantee you I will win just by pulling up statistics. 96% of everything said on mainstream media was negative against Trump. And, he's an easy guy not to like. Yeah. But you can't argue with the policy and what it did for our nation. I mean, the wages that grew, the unemployment, everything economically. And I've been an elected politician, and nothing works without a robust and viable economy. Nothing. You don't have money for schools. You don't have money for infrastructure. You don't have money for defense. You don't have money for Social Security. You don't have money for anything. So the economy is our number one thing to keep us secure, to keep our schools, to keep our infrastructure, to keep everything. So Trump did such a fabulous job. You would think that they would have reported on this, but no. And then all the things with Hunter Biden, they hit him back. And I'm just so sick of this. And now we have really a state-run news organization.
Essentially, yes. Especially with
it is.
With the censoring of the Republicans and President Trump and big tech is out of control.
Look, they shut down Parler. They took away thousands of my followers on Twitter, thousands, just for a couple tweets.
That's ridiculous. And you're right. Americans do need to pay more attention. You've heard the old quote of if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
That's right.
People have to take a stand and seek out the truth. And you're right. Don't get your news from the so-called news sources. Go out there, look it up. Go use DuckDuckGo or DuckDuckGo because Google won't tell you the right things either. So the information's out there. You have to choose whether you want to believe it or not.
You got 6 people that own 90% of the media, and they collude, and everybody that works for them. They collude also with big tech. And so you've got a few big tech owners and that run the boat. And so let's say you've got 9, 10, maybe you got a dozen people is all you need to get out to make sure they're on the same message. And that's how they brainwash the people. And that's what they've done in America. They've brainwashed, and it started in our schools long ago. I mean, I could, we better talk about the Royal Rumble or whatever you want to talk about, because I don't have a lot of time left, Rob. Today just really frosted me to see the fact that the American people could not even see the evidence that they have on election fraud should make every party in this nation and every person in this nation PO'd so that we could form our own opinion. But instead, we have Justice Roberts, who's as crooked as the day is long, and all the rest of the people and the FBI, the CIA has been weaponized. I mean, it's ludicrous. I would have never thought in America it would come down to 2 Senate races to determine whether we're going to be socialists or we're going to be regular capitalist Americans abiding 100% by the Constitution. And they're just stepping all over it.
I'm more upset that there aren't many, Jeffersonian liberals left or any Kennedy Democrats, because they should be.
I love John F. Kennedy.
Me too. They should be pissed off at what their party did to them and the way they let the leftists take over, because there's a huge difference between being a Democrat and being a leftist.
Oh, 100%.
The extreme leftists have taken over the Democratic Party, and Democrats, unfortunately, as many as I know, God love them, they vote blind party lines, and there was so much hatred for President Trump that they didn't care about anything that was going on. They just wanted him out of the office. Everything that happened last year was a calculated plan to remove President Trump, right down to the biological weapon that was designed in China to take over the world, and to
let 100% right.
To let the world powers find out how much control they can have over us.
You're a smart man. You're a smart man. I I wish everybody knew what we knew. It's just a shame.
It is.
I feel bad.
I do.
Feel bad for them, and I feel bad for our nation.
Yeah, I do too.
And our children, especially.
Well, I have a 2-year-old, man, so I can't imagine what's going to happen when she gets older. So hopefully Jesus comes and we're out of here.
I'm ready.
Yeah, take me now. All right, let's switch gears back to wrestling a little.
Yes,
I don't know if you ever heard this story from Jim Ross. It was in his first book, Slobber Knocker, but as you know, he worked for your former father-in-law, Leroy McGurk, and Bill Watts down in Mid-South.
I remember very well.
Jim was tasked with kind of being Leroy's babysitter, obviously, because Leroy was blind, and Bill tasked good old JR to drive Leroy around and once a week go to Shreveport. Jim told a funny story one time about getting in a car with Leroy, and he said usually in his satchel he had his El Presidente cigars, and he had a pint of whiskey. Well, one time during a car ride, he noticed that he also had a 44 Magnum in his satchel, which I'm sure you're quite familiar with Leroy shooting at you.
Yes,
so Leroy asked Jim when they got down the road, Jim, do you know what we're going to do when we get to Shreveport tonight? No, sir. He goes, Jim, we're going to kill Ted DiBiase. And Jim asked, why? Well, apparently, Ted was new there in Mid-South, and he had wooed the daughter of Leroy, your ex-wife, Mike McGurk. And Leroy obviously did not want any of the boys going anywhere near his precious daughter. So Leroy was intent to get there and check into the Alamo Hotel and have Jim sit him down in the chair, put the gun in his hand, point it at the door, invite Ted to come in, tell him that he had some ideas for him. And as soon as Ted came in, Leroy was going to murder Ted DiBiase. Have you ever heard that story?
Oh, yes.
Okay. That cracks me up. Look, Leroy had a great mind for the business from everything that I've heard, and he was a very, very smart man. And obviously him and Bill Watts had two different styles of booking, but each could be considered, wrestling geniuses. But I just thought that tickled me pink that he was so dead serious about killing Ted DiBiase because he was dating Mike. Was he always that way when you were around him? Was he just very, very, I don't want to say off kilter, but pretty protective of his daughter, obviously.
Yes, he was, but after a while, we got to like each other, and we had a good relationship at one time, and until I beat up Doug Summers in his office and knocked all his pictures down and all that stuff, and somebody stooged, and boy, he was hot. He was hot enough to shoot me. So
I made that joke. Thank God he was blind, or he might have hit you. But
no.
That is it's one of those stories. Yet you'd have to see it to believe it. I mean, it's that outlandish that a blind assassin tried to murder people that wooed his daughter. So. Or broke her heart. I find that funny. I'm sure it wasn't funny at the time, but obviously you can laugh about it all these years later.
Oh yeah. I look back and I really don't have any regrets. I'm grateful. Like I said, when you read my book, you'll see what I've gone through, and it's 100% true stories, and all verifiable. And I just that was a chapter of my life that I don't regret. It just is what it is. It was just a part of making me into the person that I am now. And we grow up every day, and if you try to learn something every day, you're going to be a better person for that. And so I try to learn something every day. I never forget who my boss is, the man upstairs, and I try to practice what I preach, and that's my MO.
Yeah, and that's a good, that's a good line of thinking to have. I mean, and honestly, everything I've heard from anybody have ever mentioned your name or talked about you, nobody ever had a bad thing to say about you. They always said you treated everybody with respect. You were always dependable. You never no-showed. You were always on time. You were professional. You were safe, which is the most important part, especially when somebody else is putting their life in your hands in the ring.
Oh yeah.
But nobody ever had a crossword to say about you, and that says a lot about you and your character.
It's funny you say that, Rob. I just saw a little clip on Twitter, and the only time I've ever heard anybody was my good friend Mick Foley. And there's a clip of that on Twitter, and I looked at that and I said, wow, I always wanted to see that, and I never got to see that. And I guess Tom Pritchard got it and tweeted it out there, and it was amazing. But yeah, there's a little story to that, so I don't want to give it away. It's in my book.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I love, speaking of Tom Pritchard, I love Dr. Tom. He's such a good guy. I've
keep a rib on him.
Did you really? I was going to ask you about ribs too, so we can transition right into that.
No, it's in my book.
You're killing me. Is there anything that's not in your book rib wise that you could think of that you enjoyed?
I enjoyed the Royal Rumble.
Yeah. Royal Rumble was a very unique concept, and obviously there was battle royals throughout the years. But Pat had that genius idea to have, don't put everybody in the ring all at once, have them come out every minute and a half, every 2 minutes, and it's got to be such a fascinating way to book a match. I can't imagine all that goes into it. But what were your thoughts of were you in the very first one in '88, the one that Hacksaw won?
Yes, I was.
And you were in '89 too, I believe, right? Or were you gone? You left right near WrestleMania 5, right?
I've been in so many things, I can't remember. I know it was a
right.
Big event, WrestleMania 2, 3, 4. I was supposed to go to 5, and I gave my notice, right before the beginning of the year there. And anyway, it was a wonderful career. I went on the first overseas tour, and even before that, working for WTBS for Turner. They were the original ones that took cable TV and branched out. Because I remember we went into the sheet. Everybody had. I even have papers that Leroy gave me a Halliburton, and I don't know if he knew, inside the Halliburton were the NWA notes from their meetings in Vegas, where they had their annual NWA conventions, and who was in attendance, what they talked about, who was going to be the champion. They had to vote on all that stuff. So I still have a real unique piece of history in that. And anyway,
that's really neat. I'd like to see that one day if I ever get down that way to because I told you my dad lives right outside of Tampa in Ruskin, so next time I'm down there I definitely like to see some of the memorabilia that you have. Couple more questions here before we wrap it up. I know you're a busy guy, so I won't keep you too much longer, but I did want to ask you, did you ever come across any of the promoters or any of the boys that were ever upset with Vince McMahon Jr. for pretty much buying all the territories up and putting most of them out of business? Did you ever have a lot of people that were unhappy about that?
There was a lot of people, especially obviously the promoters.
Yeah.
All the promoters. I mean, poor Vern Gagne, Vince offered him like $7 million to buy his territory and give Greg a lifetime contract. And he turned it down and wound up filing, bankruptcy. It hurt the boys tremendously, because if you weren't in the top 20%, 25%, because you got to, there was then, I forget how many territories. I know somebody has the number and I've heard it, but I can't tell you right off the top of my head, but there was dozens and dozens and dozens of territories. And so you could just go work from one territory to another. But then when, Vince took over, it kind of came down to TBS survived and Vince survived. If you were in one or the other, you were out of luck. You were just either waiting around or you found a new occupation.
No. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, there were like you said, just a handful of guys that were able to work for him at some point. But yeah, there's a lot of people that got put out of business and lost their livelihood because of that. And unfortunately, Vince took it to an extreme level. I mean, even buying out WCW and killing his number one competitor. And I've said it for many, many years now since it's happened. And I can't believe it's been since 2001. So such a long time, 20 years ago. It's ridiculous.
Well, he bought it and then he sold it back.
Well, yeah, he bought it in what, 80?
It cost him an extra $1 million.
Yeah, yeah. But when he officially bought out Turner's WCW in 2001, essentially killing his competition, it's never been the same. He's been complacent. He's rested on his laurels. It's like he has no drive to put together a compelling product anymore. It's almost like they're just going through the motions. They know they're the number one game in town. I've stopped watching current wrestling because it's hard for me to watch. It's not what I grew up on either, but there's nothing that just captures my attention anymore. And it's just, it's sad.
Yeah, no, everything's geared towards video games and towards merchandising is what the whole deal's about.
Yeah, which, I mean, he's still making money. So, I mean, on his end,
oh, absolutely,
he's doing all right. But the fans are suffering because of it. So,
no, I agree. I mean, it's almost like you got to take a cannon and shoot somebody to pin them.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, tell me, nobody sells anymore. We don't have enough time to even talk about that. Let's talk about the Cauliflower Alley Club reunion. You have your 55th annual reunion. Obviously, in 2020 got canceled, but you're rescheduled for April 25th to the 28th at the Gold Coast Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. You looking forward to finally getting it on?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I am looking so forward to it. I mean, it seems like it's been more than a year, especially when you're working every day, involved in it. It's the times even drags on. Although, as you get older, life passes by a lot quicker. I still remember, trying to get into a bar with a fake ID, just hoping that I'd get older. When am I going to be 18? So, but that's just life. We all do that. I look back and so many. I would love to have what I've seen and done on one thumb drive that I could play back and watch. Fortunately, I don't have that. I do have a great memory, and which I'm very grateful for. Has been, having 4 concussions, and I just had my 15th operation. I had my shoulder operated on about 9 months ago. And, you have 15 operations for the business. Those are all from the business. I've had other operations, broken arms and things that didn't come from the business, but I've had 15 actual operations, 4 concussions from the business. And it's just, you take that kind of beating. Most people don't. They have no comprehension what a guy that's been in the business for 5 or 10, 15 years goes through. Yeah.
I mean, besides all the travel, just taking the bumps every night. And people are like, oh, well, they only wrestled 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes a night. But yeah, you tried falling on your back 15, 20 times on a plywood surface, with a small amount of canvas on top of it, and see how you feel after one match. So
exactly.
let alone year after year after year. So it takes a special kind of person to do that.
Yeah, it does. You have to have kind of like a little bit of gypsy in you, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Do you miss the adrenaline rush from being in front of a crowd?
No, because I still get it sometimes. Going to the signings and autograph sessions. They'll be packed. I just wrestled on July 29th, 2019, 1 week before I had a back major back surgery.
Mm-hmm.
I barely made it into the ring. I don't even know how I made it into the ring. And after I took the first fireman's carry and my leg locked, I was sitting there, and you got to do it quickly. I'm thinking, how am I going to get up? How am I going to get up? I'm in dire pain, and I feel like something's going to break. But I resorted to like Mexican style, using the right side versus the left side. I was working the side, so it worked out. And I figured if anything was going to get broken anymore, they could fix it in surgery.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. It must be a little bit harder when you get older because, you wrestled for years and years and years. And, it's funny as we all get older, we still think we can do the things that we did 10, 15, 20 years ago. But your body says, no, not doing it. Can't do it. It's a hard thing to deal with.
Yeah. No. And I always think to myself, well, should you really have, worked that late into my career? But again, I don't have any regrets because when I was in Iowa at the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2019 and worked that match, it was sold out, and promoter, really, really wanted me to work. He said, but please, can you at least go to the ring? And wonderful guy. And I thought, well, those people, I don't want to let them down. I've been coming here every year and wrestling here every year for the past 5 years. And for this one particular event, and people wanted to see my retirement match there. And so I said, well, I'm here. I got to do it. And, Wesley Briscoe and a few of the other young guys helped me get to the ring, helped me up the steps. And once I stood up at the top of the steps, and I'm staring into a black curtain, but I can hear how loud it is on the other side of that curtain. And, I just looked up above and I said, Lord, please give me the strength for this match. And I said, let's go. First I said, amen. And I said, let's go. And they helped me ride all the way up until the curtain, and I jerked the curtain open, and there's a big pop, and the adrenaline started flowing, and so it just happened.
That's great, man. Yeah, adrenaline is a heck of a thing when it's running. It'll get you through a lot of things. And I read Roddy Piper's book. God bless him. He was such a great guy too.
I had so much fun.
But he said, it's almost like a sickness. That wrestling gets in your blood, and it's hard for the boys to get away from it. It's an addiction to a lot of people. It's like adrenaline and endorphins is a pretty good drug, and riding on that high. It's something when it's gone, you miss it, and Steve Austin said it probably took a good 2 years, to get it out of his system to where he didn't miss it. But.
Yeah. Get a little dark outside.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Roddy was right. Roddy used to call me Patches. I was telling him about one time we were on the road, and I don't know, we were somewhere up in New York, and he asked me about my life growing up. So I was born in Gary, Indiana, which is a very tough city to be raised in. And it's kind of funny, most of the people around me were black, and I didn't know the difference between black and white, really. We were just all people.
Yeah.
Had Italians, some Italians. There was one white guy down the street, Billy Kopinski. He was a Polish guy. And, of course, everybody was identified kind of ethnically, but it was done on a respect level, not on a demeanor level. And we all got along, even though there was lots and lots of fights, and the older guys didn't want to hang around them because so many of them were into crime already. And, fortunately we moved to Florida when I was 10 and a half years old. And that was probably one of the best decisions that my parents ever made. And, it was a good move. And I still went through a lot of difficult things when I got here. And again, I talk about it in my autobiography. And, it's, I can't believe that we went from that kind of everybody getting along to such a, oh, you're a racist, or you're a racist, or you're a homophobe, or you're this, or you're that, when they don't even, and those people will judge somebody by whether they have a D or an R after their name, or what color their skin is. Oh, you must be a racist because you're white. And it's such BS that it just frosts my butt. But I don't let it anger me inside, because if you worry too much, you're just it's not worth it, and life's too short as it is. So you have to take each day and appreciate each day. It's like my Uncle Jimmy, my dad's brother, God bless him, he used to always tell me, he'd say, B, what you really need to do as you get older, you'll learn this. He said, you need to plan as if you're going to live forever. And I'm listening. He goes, but you need to live as if you're going to die tomorrow. And I heard that, and it makes so much sense.
Yeah, it really does. And, treat people, it's a cliche, but always treat people the way you would want to be treated. And that's just, it's something that's been lost now, especially with social media and people not being afraid to just type out whatever they want and have no repercussions at all, and probably wouldn't say it to either of our faces or anybody else's. And then the keyboard warriors.
Right, and the same people that they profess to believe in God, and God's number one commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. And so, I've always believed that. I've always had faith all my life. I mean, some strange things happened to me when I was younger, and but I've had faith since a very, very early age. But until I really started having really deep conversations with Doris Adkisson, the Von Erich's mother. Miss Adkisson. She really, really got me into the gospel itself, and the words and the meaning and the faith, and feeling it and realizing that God is in you and you are in God. And what goes around comes around, and to be a good person, and everything's not going to happen good in your life, and you have to deal with whatever comes your way, whether it's bad, good, or gloriful. You just deal with it and walk humbly, and be kind, and do the best you can. If you see somebody that needs a hand, give them a hand. And all that kind of parlayed into making me understand people. And when you understand people, it's easier to understand the psychology of wrestling, because wrestling is a psychology where you have to listen to the people. Now, today's wrestling, that's how I was brought up. So the match that they might be buying a headlock in Tampa and holds, or chain wrestling, and then you may have to go to Toledo and have to really start the they want to see blood and guts, fists, fury, they want to see bumps. And so everybody doesn't buy. It can be the exact same two opponents, and Bret Hart and I were just talking about that. It could be the exact same two opponents in two different cities, and one city is going to buy it and the other city's not, and you have to be smart enough to be able to adjust on the fly. And today I think the guys are better athletes. There's some bigger and better athletes, highly skilled. I love them all, I appreciate them all, and it's not their fault. And they're just tuned into that, they're told what to do, the scripted stuff. This is the way they're going to do it. So you're going to go to Tampa and see the same matches you do in Toledo, whether you like it or not. If you're buying it, you're buying it. If you're not, you're not. I did my job.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. It's like, what used to work in Greensboro may not work in Madison Square Garden in New York or Philly or some of the tougher New England crowds. It's it's something I never really thought about. That's a pretty cool thing. I never knew that. You mentioned Mrs. Atkinson. I actually had Ross and Marshall Von Erich on the show a few months ago. God, they are fantastic with tremendous heads on their shoulders. Those guys are young, but man, they are just age beyond their years. They're so smart and so humble and men of the Lord, just like their dad, Kevin. And I love those guys so much.
Like their mom, Pam, and like their grandparents. I mean, they're wonderful people. They have wonderful kids. I mean, I've played with them all in Kauai, and just a great family. And, David and I were so close. I mean,
yeah, you live with them, right?
For a year and a half.
Yeah.
And, so they treated me just like I was their family. It was right after I was divorced, for my first marriage. And I came straight from Tulsa to David's house, and that was a surprise. Oh gosh, there's some interesting stuff that you'll read eventually.
Those guys were over like nobody else.
I tell you what, Rob, they were over big time. Big time.
Well, I appreciate you being here very much, B. It's always good to talk to you. I know we text every now and then, but I'm horrible at keeping in touch. But I'll definitely have to try that and talk to you more, because I enjoy talking to you. You're a national treasure. You really are. I'm so glad that you still have your wits about you, and you're able to recall all these great memories and stories. And hopefully you don't ever lose that, because as you know, it could be gone in a minute. So I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you to your audience. And I appreciate you giving me the time. And God bless you and your audience. And let's hope for better days ahead.
Absolutely.
Thanks again for listening to this episode. You can follow RTW on Twitter at RadTurtlesPod, and you can email the show at radturtleswrestling@gmail.com. We appreciate all of your support. You've been listening to RTW Rewind.